Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here in a few minutes with huddle time. I hope everyone is doing well, has enjoyed their holidays. We will get started here in a couple minutes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Huddle Time. My name is Frank Fulco. I'm the CEO for Cosmetologist Chicago and America's Beauty Show. And tonight, I'm sitting in for our host, Ronit Enos. Ronit's traveling this week with her husband, Bill, and they're traveling across the country. So we wish them safe travels, as always. Before we get started, I just want to say hello to all of you. Hello, Karen Gordon. Welcome. And we'll just do a little housekeeping before we bring on our guest, Miss Elaine Travis. First of all, happy holidays, everyone. I hope everyone is having a good holiday season so far. Wishing you and your families great health through the holidays and into next year. 2021 can't come soon enough, and we're all anticipating it with great fervor. Looking forward to our membership drive. That's going to be kicking off here in January. So Mary Wilson and Teresa and Sharon and Maggie Bujak, we hope to see you in our membership drive. That's going to be kicking off here in January. And just a little bit about membership to America's Beauty Show and Cosmetologist Chicago is we've made it more benefits, easier to do, easier to access, because at the end of the day, we're trying to make everyone's life easier. At Cosmetologist Chicago, we're a nonprofit association, and we're here to serve all licensed beauty professionals. So look for emails regarding our membership drive. And just a second, quick housekeeping announcement. We sent out an email regarding helping us get back to work. And these are for our colleagues out in California. We're fortunate in Illinois, in which our state representatives have worked with us to keep us open. And our colleagues out in California are trying to petition to get their salons back open again. So we sent out an email on that with more information on that. Please look for that. And if you feel inspired to support our colleagues in California, we would encourage you to do so. So let's get started for tonight. Our guest is Miss Elaine Travis, and Elaine is the author of a book, A Colorful Journey. It was published in 2016. And Elaine was also a former salon owner, and she is an active business coach, and we are so honored to have Elaine here tonight. So with that, I'd like to bring on Miss Elaine Travis. So welcome, Elaine.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here. It was a nice surprise to meet you. I had been in touch with Ronit. When I found out I have the big cheese here, I was like, wow, this is even more exciting. So it's such a pleasure to finally meet you and to be here and just talk about what I love most, which is hair color. So yes, the book was the beginning of me being able to share what I love with other stylists, and a whole new journey in my career. Doing what I love and what lights me up, for sure.
Well, hair color is such a huge category, and has really just helped the salon industry, grow significantly over the last many years here. So I'm a big fan of the color category and really respect and appreciate the artistry that comes with hair color. So Elaine, just why don't you give us a little bit about you, because I know you're an active business coach and you've got, several hundred clients, but tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your background and kind of what inspires you.
Absolutely. So I love the saying, your mess becomes your message, because that's exactly what brought me to where I am right now, as well as my entire career. It all began with a mishap of my sister trying to color her hair herself. And I was in beauty school at the time, and she came home in tears. I went into school the next day, And I asked one of my teachers to help me. She had no idea how to help me. I asked the owner of the school to help me. He had no idea how to help me. I got out of school. My first boss didn't know how to help me. And I thought, something's wrong here. There's not enough information. And I, of course, was not armed with what I needed to know right out of school. We started the chapter on hair color my last week of my hours. So we got to a little bit of theory, and then it was, you graduated, off, go do your thing. So I tried the one line that really irritates me is the fake it till you make it, especially when it comes to chemicals and people's hair color.
You just can't.
But it's still going on, unfortunately. So I thought, I know enough, right? And my first job, I was given a chair. So I thought I had arrived. I thought, I don't want to be somebody's assistant. I was that busy, doing your friend's hair at home. I got this. I know enough. And I found myself talking people out of hair color. When they would sit in my chair and show me a photograph that I knew I wasn't capable of doing, I had the personality to be able to give them compliments and talk them out of it instead of saying, I don't know how. So my education in 1986 was modern salon, American salon. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have YouTube or videos or any of those things. So I only had that magazine. And the 1 month it landed in my lap and I was sitting going through every page as I always did. And there was an event called Hair Color USA. I'm sure you remember that. It was the very first one in Miami. And I closed the magazine and I called my mom and I said, I'm flying to Miami. I'm going to the show. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care if I have to go by myself. I'm going. And when I was there, I said, I am not leaving here until I understand this hair color thing. So, 19 years old, I'm on an airplane. I'd never flown before. I had to figure all that out. I got there to this beautiful, the Fontainebleau Hotel. I was there by myself. And I paired up with this older woman who was so kind. She saw that I was alone. So we ate together. We went into the classes together. And what frustrated me most was every classroom that I went in, the educator had good intentions, but they kept throwing around these numbers and letters, right? I mean, you're not a hairstylist. I don't know. Are you a hairstylist? Do you have that background?
I'm not a hairstylist, and I do not pretend to be a hairstylist. All I am is I'm a person that is genuine and gives. So I generally connect with hairstylists because
we're your people.
Right, you're my people. That's exactly.
But if I were to stand here and start to write on a whiteboard, you would feel now how I felt as a licensed professional. These numbers and letter combinations sounded wonderful, but the model was always pre-done or half done. And then they would take the cape off and spin her around and say 1 ounce of 7R and 1 ounce of 7GR and equal parts 20 VOL. And they'd write it up on the board and everybody would write it down. And I would write it down as well, thinking this was like a prescription. This was going to work on the head that I have in my chair. And I think that's the biggest disconnect still to this day, no matter how many years in the industry someone is. I think the biggest mistake is people think that hair color is paint, that this mixture, when I'm squirting a 7CR out of a tube, I think most stylists are thinking that copper red is coming out of that tube and being applied to the hair. So it's going to be copper red. Instead, what's happening is what's in the tube is a chemical that's reacting with what is present in the hair. And then when the hair is lightened, all of this natural warmth comes out and it becomes the warmth plus the tube, and you meet halfway. So that's my gift to the industry, is that I explain that so slowly and so well that these light bulbs go off and people are like, crap, no wonder I haven't gotten the results from the 7CR, because I think the 7CR is going to be 7CR on Frank, on Elaine, on Jill, on whoever. So that's the biggest frustration.
So Elaine, experience is a valuable teacher, but it can be very expensive and very painful. And so along the way, did you have any mentors that really helped you, learn this or get your hands around it quickly?
Well, the show that I went to that I was just talking about, the Hair Color USA, I I got to the final gala, the last party of the weekend, still not understanding, feeling really defeated, broke because it was expensive to do all that.
Sure.
And I met yet another woman who I wish I knew her name and I could squeeze her and tell her how much she did for my life. She has no idea. She's in the book. She started all of this. She very patiently, she said, what's wrong? You seem sad. I said, I'm really sad. I spent a lot of money to come here. I still don't understand hair color. I don't understand how this mixture on this hair turns at this color. I don't understand. And she very calmly flipped over. She had a regular business card and she flipped it over and she started writing. I'm kind of looking at her like, what is she writing? And she was writing out the remaining pigment contribution that happens in the levels of lift. And I had never seen this before. I've never seen it since. I've never seen anybody teach it in a color class. And I was like, it was like fireworks. I was like, oh my gosh, I totally get it. Like in my book, on page 7 of my book, I put that chart in there because this changed if I was a tattoo person, I would be wearing this proudly because this is such a key to formulation. Somebody was just talking about it. I was in a forum before I jumped on here and they were like, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't understand this math equation. And, people were going back and forth and I commented and I said, I'm happy to explain it better. And her next question was, well, what about the tone? What tone do you use? And the beauty of that chart is not only does it tell you where you're going to land, but it tells you exactly what's going to be present in the hair when you land there. So the number one request that's in every problem, issue, concern, forum, back and forth about hair color is my client wants an ashy level 8. And I always snicker to myself, you're not going to get the humor, but there is no such thing as an ashy level 8. Level 8 is very warm. So I always jump in and say, level 8 is not ashy. Well, I just want it ashy. And they're basically asking for the impossible. So,
all right. So Elaine, you've answered the question very technically. Okay. I'll rephrase the question this time. All right. So clearly hair color is a technical skill, but were there any mentors or any people along the way other than the one lady who flipped the business card over and signed it or put the chart on there? Anybody else along the way that really has made a difference in you being who you are and how you're approaching hair color and the remainder of your career too?
100%. Like this book that I'm holding here is my copy of my own book, and I cherish it because where's my camera? It was signed by Beth. She signed my book for me. So,
and Beth whom?
Beth Minardi was my number one, 100%. Like I tortured her soul. I followed her everywhere. It was like the running joke in my staff. They're like, she's going to have a restraining order out against you soon, because I literally, any education that she offered, I was there. It didn't matter how far, what the tuition was, whether I actually moved my son's communion party to go see Beth. How awful is that? Like he made his communion. I showed up, I saw him do the whole thing, and I was like, we're having your party next week. And I went right to the airport to go to the event that you and I talked about today, the Beth event at the Naples Ritz-Carlton. It was one of the best events I've ever gone to, and I have no regrets. And my son was fine. He, as long as he had his party. But literally, I would move anything.
He's scarred for life. He's scarred for life.
Yeah,
he just has
it'll come out in therapy.
It'll come out
but
later.
it all works out for sure. Yeah, she was amazing because
does Beth know this?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Good. Beth is one of the very best in hair color and just in our profession, and just such a thought leader and inspiring to so many people. So Beth made this difference in your life, and you went to her event. And how has that changed your approach, or how has that shaped your approach to how you do what you do?
Well, first and foremost, I didn't know that I could choose a specialty. We all get out of beauty school and we tend to want to be good at everything, and we struggle to be good at everything. And I kept leaning towards color, but I didn't know how to just give up everything else. You get in it and you start doing it and you start getting busy. And every time I went to her beauty focus, Carmine would be doing a haircut over here. She would be doing color here. And I would find myself, he would be at the end of his haircut and I would look and be like, oh no, I just missed the whole thing because I couldn't take my eyes off of her and what she was doing. So all the signs were there that I needed to specialize, that my passion was not in those other things, but I just didn't know what that looked like. And it was that one of her things that, she was like, who specializes in one thing in here? No hands went up. And she was the only one. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be the only other one because that is so smart. Why would I spend my day doing things, spending 80% of my day doing things I don't really love when hair color is the higher ticket anyway? And becoming so passionate about something, I was able to put all of my education in that one area to be able to get really good at it. And then I didn't have to do Groupons and coupons and giveaways because people leaving your salon become your advertisement and you're always attracting new business just organically because your love and passion for what you do shows on the head. That I think has been the biggest gift of COVID is that stylists are given permission to slow down and see one guest at a time. That whole squeeze in thing was never for me. I never liked working like that. And I chose to always have one guest at a time. That was always my brand. And that's why I think we're still there. My salon is still there. My daughter has it now, but 31 years, it might even be 32 years in business and still known as the color experts. And people come from all over because we went all in on one thing. We have really talented stylists that do strictly cutting. They're not doing eyelashes and brow shaping and tattooing and all that other stuff. They're just doing what they're really good at, and they're able to raise their price. I think that's something, if you asked Beth today, her biggest disappointment in all of her awesome education is that people still have that terrified fear of raising their prices. And our industry as a whole needs to elevate those prices.
All right. So we're going to go to there. We're going to go to raising prices because that's a huge issue. So I just want to kind of back up a little bit. Okay. So you go to this event at the Fontainebleau. Your Beth helps shape your career and your focus. You really start to dig into color. You find your passion there, and you really become a specialist there. Talk to us about your bridge into owning your own salon, and that transition and where you're at with that. Talk us through right there.
Well, my business plan was I dumped all of my cash tips from my bartending job on the kitchen table. The guy from Takara Belmont came to my house. His name was Dick. I still remember him like it was yesterday. I was 22 years old. And he said, what can I do for you? And he looked at the space, and I literally dumped money out of a jar on just crinkled up 20s all over the table and said, how much furniture can I afford? That was my business plan. And I often joke about it. And I say, my whole career has been just get in there and start and you'll figure it out. I don't have an MBA. I didn't have education coaches and all that stuff. It was just like, I really love hair. Here's a space. Let me get a business license, put the sign up, and people showed up. And because I loved what I did, I always overgave, always gave great service, great, squeezing people in, doing all of that stuff, some of which I would not do again. I got a little crazy with it. But I just think that old adage, do what you love and the money comes, is 100% true. I can't even imagine so many people that I know just do not like what they do. And they're just showing up and going through the motions. It's too big of a chunk of your life to just go through the motions. I've never woken up and said, oh, I have to go to work ever.
So I'm going to go back to this: experience is a valuable teacher, but it's expensive and it's painful. So your whole strategy is to get in there and get going. And you've had these experiences, and you learn from them, and you keep going and you keep working your way through them, and you have this framework of over delivering, like just love people and bring them in. So how did that work with your staff? Like, what did you see as a salon owner like, what's your advice when you're mentoring younger stylists along the way? Here you are, you're very passionate, you're very focused, you're courageous, you're willing to just get in there and do the work. That's it. Do the work your way through it. So how do you mentor younger stylists through
Mm.
that?
If there was a pill for that, I would be 100% behind it. I think early in my career, I thought that modeling was enough. I thought that them seeing me behave a certain way was enough. I think there's definitely a difference between being a boss and being a leader. I tended to, in retrospect, I can look back and see
Sure.
that I was trying to pull people up instead of leading from behind. I was trying to drag people up to my level. And I would come home frustrated. My husband would say, if everybody was like you wouldn't have any employees because they would all want their own business. And he would remind me of that. And I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. But you only can live from your own perspective. So things just came so easy to me that I was like, how can you not see that? For
Right.
me, the biggest frustration is when they don't have a client and they have a 3-hour gap and they leave and go shopping. I'm like, you're going to have that 3-hour gap every day if you keep leaving and going shopping. When I worked in a salon and had a 3-hour gap, I walked over to the Estee Lauder counter, introduced myself to the girl behind the counter and said, what time do you get off? I want to give you free color and I'm going to give you stock of my cards. And anybody that comes to try a lipstick, tell them how much you love your hair and send them to me and I'll keep doing your hair for free. I always found a way to fill the chair myself. I never blamed the salon or their lack of advertising. All that whining and that backroom bitching just triggers me. I'm like, I never sat in the back room. I went to Starbucks. I went to the department stores. I put old school back, 22-year-old Elaine was putting flyers under people's windshield wipers. I mean, you can't do that now. You would be arrested. But those are the things that we did because we didn't have social media. Another thing that I think is kind of crisscross now with social media is stylists are going by that vanity number and they want X amount of followers and they're going on forums asking other stylists to follow them. And I just keep shaking my head. I'm like, that's not who you want on your Instagram. Like your social media, if it's for your business, you want Frank and his family and like outside clients to find you and know who you are. Having 400 hairdressers for me, that's awesome because I'm an educator and that's my audience. Right. But for a stylist, I think it's just gotten so vanity and ego and not metrics and results and, clients in your chair. It's so much simpler than I think it's been made out to be.
And I'll just build on one of the points that you made, and you just said it very casually. You said, I would go to the Estee Lauder counter and say, let me do your color. I'm going to come back to this focus piece. One of the reoccurring themes that I hear, Elaine, in your topic, in your discussion, and in your book is your focus on color. So your signature was color. And when you sampled your signature, which was color. So how do you help younger folks? And we'll move on from this, but I want to talk about this. I want to stay with this whole mentorship piece because you're very successful. And you've been very successful because you're a very hard worker. You're courageous. You get in and you figure it out. But you've also had some folks mentor you along the way that have helped shape your focus and given you the confidence to really zero in. So just one last thing before we move off of mentorship, which is, how do you help, or let's go this way. Name one person, younger person, that you've really mentored and helped. And how did you do it? Because I think that'll be a great case study.
Yeah, well, I've actually, the thing that I'm the most proud of is the speed at which I can get a brand new, right out of beauty school student to behind the chair and earning a wonderful living quickly because of the specialty piece. So when you came to work for me, you chose color or cut. And if you chose color, you trained with me. If you chose cutting, you trained with one of the stylists. And I was able to simplify and bring everything down to the cliff notes. I always say, you know, in English class when I had to read Romeo and Juliet, I was like, oh hell no, I'm going right to the cliff notes. I'm not reading this how art thou stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much fluff in a hair color education, and not that it's not important, but I often say when I'm standing behind the chair and I'm looking at a client, I'm not thinking about what ingredients are in the color, the, you know, the chemical breakdowns and what's happening in the cutex and the cortical and the cortex. You have to know that. But once you know it, it's kind of in the back of your mind. Like you're not thinking that each time. And I think people hear that in school and when they're first out and they think that they're building a bomb. Like they either think it's way too complicated and they're terrified of it, or people are not terrified enough. There's the girl who's poking holes in a plastic cap and putting powdered lightener and 40 volume on scalp under a dryer for 45 minutes, who's not afraid of anything and should be. And then there's the stylist that's afraid of using Shades EQ for 20 minutes as a glaze on somebody, is terrified. So there's like too much extreme one way to the other. So my biggest success story is there's a girl that still works at my salon who started with me from beauty school. And she shampooed, she did the whole assistant thing. And I took her under my wing when I knew that I was opening a second location. And I said, if you trust me and you do the work, you know, I'm going to show you everything, but you have to do the work and you have to be able to be open to seeing things differently. What I'm going to tell you is going to be completely opposite of everything you ever learned in beauty school, but please just trust me. And she trusted me. And we opened the salon, I think it was like 17 years ago, the second location. She was in my first location and she was doing updos and blow dries and waxing and all that. And she loved it all. And we were sitting in my car and she said, I don't know about this color thing. Like I'm afraid to, and I said, just do the trust fall. Just trust me. And she bought a brand new Mercedes within a year of working there. Like her career just took off because she actually took it all in and regurgitated it all. Like she didn't fight me on everything. Like so many people, you and I talked about this morning, you know, when you offer mentorship to people, it's kind of like parenting. You want to keep your kids from making mistakes that you see coming from a mile away with 20/20 vision that they can't see. But until they have the things happen to them, they can't appreciate the advice. And the same thing goes, unfortunately, for a professional mentorship. It's kind of like, no, I don't believe it. You know, like I have a membership for stylists and it's very color focused. And my goal is to take someone from, you know, an average income and get them to that 6-figure level. And they'll write in and say, I have a client coming. She has level this hair, da, 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 da. And I will walk them through it. I'll be like pulling it out of them and saying, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And we'll come to this whole conclusion of what she's going to do. And I say, please share your results with the group. We would all love to see it, as well as what you did. The next day, same girl shows her results, looks nothing like the goal. And I'm kind of like, well, how do I handle this? Because I don't want to say, oh, it looks great, because that's not a good teacher, right? But you have to be careful with your delivery when you want to give constructive criticism. So I say, how do you feel about the outcome? And she said, well, I feel like it got really dark. And I said, yeah, I agree. What do you think happened? And she's like, I don't know. I think it's porosity. And I said, well, what did you do? And everything that she did was the complete and total opposite of what we talked about. And it was what she always did. And that's the biggest frustration. I'm like, it's like taking a GPS. We've had friends who will not use a GPS and you're driving with them and you're like, you know, you have it on in the back seat and you're like, turn right here, turn. And they're like, no. And they won't listen. And then you're stuck in 45 minutes of traffic. That's kind of how I feel when I try to mentor certain people. They just can't hear it because it's too different from what they already know, which is the point, you know? So I always say, like, the uncomfortableness and the fear is never going away. It's what you do with it. It's pushing past it. Just try it. I always say, try it in the back of their head. If you're terrified to take my advice and do it all over, just do it in the back. The client's never going to look back there. you're going to be blowing them dry. You're going to see how amazing the back looks and wish you did it in the front. And that's what happens. They reach out the next day and they're like, oh my gosh, the back was amazing. I'm going to do the whole thing next time.
All right. So listen, I'm going to start checking the back of my head now much more closely. Okay. So we've talked about mentorship and we've talked a little bit about just like change and people accepting coaching and, moving forward and basically being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like we all have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So let's talk a little bit about your current day job right now. You're a business coach and you're working with several hundred clients right now. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing right now. You're not in a salon. Your daughter's running the salon business right now.
Yes.
So you're doing some business coaching right now. Talk to us a little bit about what you're coaching folks on.
So it is a membership. It can be either monthly or annual. I give lots and lots of goodies to the annual people because it's my belief that when you go all in on something and invest in a year and you know that you're going to go on a journey, you're going to do the work. I've found if I did statistics and analyzed everything, the annual people always do better than the monthly. Some of the monthly people forget that they're even in the membership. They don't come to the coaching calls. They don't even open the lessons that are on the computer. I almost feel like it's the same people that join a gym and think they're going to be built just because they have the membership. They don't plan on showing up, but they have the tag on their keychain and they feel like a gym person. Mm-hmm. So same thing. So, when they sign up, I say, listen, I'm here for you. I'm taking you on this journey and I am there for you 1000%, but I can't drive to your house, turn on your computer and force you to show up. So if you show up and do the work, you're going to get results. So it's monthly coaching where it's different topics every month. I bring in guests from outside the membership. I've had amazing guests and that's kind of what turned into the revival event. I had Vivian as a guest, right. I had Beth, I had all of them. And I was like, we need to do something else. We need to do a virtual show with these people. And it was amazing. But my gift to my members and to people that I teach is the gift of connection. That's my favorite part of what I do is that because I've been in the industry for such a long time and I was so into being educated, being the student. Now I have those relationships with those educators and now I can bring them to my members where my members may not have known who they were. So that's my favorite, just being able to, you talked about coaching and there's a little bit of life coaching that I sneak in there. People don't realize they're going to get that when they join, but it becomes their favorite part. And the biggest part is setting up boundaries. I think hairstylists are the most guilty group of being so giving and so going the extra mile always for the client, but not having it reciprocated and years and years of that
so
really
let's park right there because we're going to get into a few topics there. So what you've got several hundred clients. You're working with different folks now. What are like the three most common mistakes that you see that you would share with our audience?
Number one being fear to raise prices and apologizing when you do it. I see it every day. Due to the increase, everybody's freaking out right now. Apparently gloves have gone through the roof because of COVID. I didn't even realize that. Yeah. So the cost of gloves, I noticed, I went to get a few things for my own hair and I noticed it was a lot more expensive at the beauty supply. I was like, whoa, that was like a shock to me. So I know things are definitely, they're trying to make up for lost time. But that's the biggest thing is how to raise prices, when to raise prices, and by how much. That makes me insane because it's so much easier than people make it out to be. It just goes up. When I raised my prices, I would open my laptop and I would raise everything. And when the client would come in, if it was, $95 last month and I raised it $3, when they came up to the desk, I would say $98. They'd say, here's my card. And I'd say, have a nice day. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. There was no orchestra with violins and apologies and, handing out tissues. It was $3, So I think frequent small increases over time, you're going to get there faster than these, like, I haven't raised it in 20 years and now I have to raise it $20.
$10. Yeah, right. Okay. That's number one. What's number two?
Number two is not taking the time for a consultation every single visit. When I overhear a consultation being rushed by a coworker, I can predict in the first 5 minutes of that conversation how the end result is going to go, because I see the stylist talking at the same time as the client. They're not listening, and they're trying to rush them through what they're trying to say. And I hear there's triggering words for me, like if a client says gold when they really don't mean gold. A lot of clients describe color differently. So if I don't see photos coming out, if there's not an iPad or a magazine or some kind of visual, I'm just like, this is a disaster waiting to happen. So I think the consultation is undervalued a lot. And the other biggest mistake is thinking you can do something faster than you can. I mean, that's been like that should have been number one, because I watch people booking themselves and I look at the book and I'm like, how in the world do you think you're doing? Like, I know how much that hair that client has. I know she's always 10 minutes late. I know this, I know that. And oh, it'll be fine. And it's never fine. And it's always a domino effect. And a lot of stylists right now are upset because they have big gaps in their book. And I think COVID has made us all rethink a lot of things. And I think clients have had an opportunity to step away from their routine and realize they're not getting the service that they think that they deserve. And it's causing them to look elsewhere. Now, something I'm proud to say is my members, because they up their game with their hair color skills, they're reporting to me that they've never had so many brand new clients coming to them. They're not advertising, they're not doing anything, they're just showing up. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's what we talked about. Because when you level up what you're putting out, it's going to happen. You're not going to have to worry about all that other stuff. You know, I think not enough education is being put in the right areas.
So we have fear of raising prices, not taking the appropriate time for the consultation, and then the number three, thinking you can do things faster than you can. So the whole consultation piece really sets the framework or sets the groundwork for raising prices, doing things the right way. Why do you think consultation is rushed so much?
I just think the whole model is so broken that when I worked in another salon, we were given 15-minute appointments. And I look back at that and I think, how am I still speaking and standing and functioning? Like 15 minutes. When I think about how I treat a client now, it takes me 15 minutes to greet you properly, make you a wonderful cappuccino, walk you to the chair, hand you well, this is all pre-COVID, but hand you a magazine, hand you your favorite snack. Like, just getting you settled is about 15 minutes. And then we have to have a conversation of, how's your color? You went on vacation, you got a little brighter blonde. Are you liking that? Like, it's a back and forth, at least 20-minute conversation. So if I'm booked every 15 minutes, I don't even have time to get the color mixed and put it on her head, let alone be ready for the next client. So I think that seeing less clients and charging higher prices, I'm seeing it start to happen, but then I'm seeing that be to a whole other extreme, where it's an 8-hour appointment for $1,200 and, you know, bleaching it out to like where it should be on the ground. That's a whole other problem.
All right, so let's stay with the mainstream here. Okay, one other question on this whole thing with raising prices. Do you think raising prices, that whole concept, is going to become even more difficult for stylists now, because people maybe personally are feeling the pain, so they don't want to pass the pain on to their client?
Oh, 100%. And that's where the whole issue comes from, because we all inherit a money story. We all bring our individual money story into the salon. So the hardest thing as an owner, you know, that was always the hardest thing for me to do, was to tell the staff, you know, you're in demand, you have, you know, a 2-month waiting list, we're raising your prices. And they would fight me on it. I'm like, what other industry, when you tell someone they got a raise, would fight you on it? There's this guilt, this unnecessary, I'm not enough, I don't deserve it, I'm not worthy. But when you think about how hard you physically work and what you're giving. For me, anytime a woman would be upset about a price increase, I would look down at her handbag. And like the one client came in with an ostrich Hermes bag that was $20,000 and it was white. And she was getting level 5 hair color. I'm like, are you kidding me? Get that off that counter, put it in some vault somewhere in 12 plastic bags, because I do not want to get color on your $20,000 handbag. But I think people's priorities are kind of skewed. Like I would always say, you're spending more money on your purse than your hair, and your hair is attached to your body. It's your number one accessory that you never ever take off.
Right.
So I could never understand why people didn't think of hair color and hair services as a necessity. I would give up most anything other than that. Like I when I teach, I show people, where's my little swatch? There's a nasty swatch around here in my Badlands of my desk of what my natural color looks like without, oh, here it is. So this is what I would look like if it were not for hair color.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give up going out to eat before I give up getting my hair color done.
Sure.
Because I can't take that.
But let's stay with, we're talking about the client, but let's stay with the stylist. So what would you do? Like, how would you encourage our members to like mentally help themselves work their way through and help their staff work their way through to raising their prices during COVID? Like, what would be some coaching you could help them through?
I mean, again, it always goes back to fear. It's the story that we tell ourselves. And I honestly think that just like the gloves, the gloves were raised. Did we get a formal letter in the mail apologizing from the glove manufacturers that the price was going up? They just raise the price and we pay whatever it is, as we do for a tube of color, for all the supplies that we use. And I'm not saying that a stylist should give that whole rant to their client, because I've seen that listed on the mirror, due to, no. You just, if you feel compelled to do so, giving them notice before their next visit. Like my daughter just had an increase. And she said to the staff, if you feel like you want to give the client a verbal heads up, that's fine, but we're not sending out a big email or any of that stuff. So they just said, today is your usual price, but the next time you come in, the prices will be slightly higher. We're having a slight price increase. They said, okay, and I always see it from my perspective too. Like I went to get my nails done and the woman could not stop apologizing for a $3 increase, to the point where she was making me uncomfortable because I didn't care. I was like, okay, because I'm in the business. I'm just like, okay, that's great. Like, okay, I'll raise your tip too. And that's the other thing. The money story that keeps these stylists from charging the proper price, they're also cheating themselves on the gratuity. Because when you give your clients breaks, they don't know they're getting a break. They don't know what the price is when they're coming to the service. So they're basing the tip solely on the total. So if a service is supposed to be 150 and you charge her 100 and you think you made her day, she thinks it's always 100 and she thinks it's 100 for her friend. So now she's giving you a gratuity on 100 when you could have gotten it on 150. So not only did you lose commission on that $50, but you lost that tip. And over a year, I did that for the stylist I was telling you about that bought the Mercedes. She kept doing the little, oh, no charge for the glaze on the ends and no charge for a couple foils and no charge for this and all that nonsense. And I stood next to her, and every time she tried to do that, I had her write it in a journal. And at the end of the year, I said, tell me how much different your paycheck would have been. And it was $8,000.
Yeah. Oh, it's significant.
So, like, you don't realize, those little things over time. That's a big chunk of your income.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about your book. And it's called The Colorful Journey. It's on Amazon. And for those who haven't seen it, it's 4.5 stars on Amazon. And congratulations. That's great. And it's Elaine Travis, a career colorist. What inspired you to write the book? And what would you like for all of the folks on this huddle time to really take away from your book?
Really, the biggest aha in the book is that universal law of lift and the math equation for formulation. It just simplifies it so, easily and clearly. The book started as a way to do a brain dump. Basically, I had trained so many stylists in the way that I do color, and I had to repeat myself over and over and over. And I was like, everybody's doing DVDs. I'm dating myself again, but everybody was doing like a DVD with a thing on there.
They're doing 8 tracks. They're doing 8 tracks.
VHS, yeah. So I was like, you know what? Most hairstylists, there's not really been a book, like a book that you actually would read and find interesting. And it's a little bit of it. The biggest compliment that I got was when people read it that knew me. And they said, I could hear you telling the story. Like I could hear your voice telling the story. And I love that because that's exactly what I wanted it to be. But I want to share with you, everyone who's watching and share the link. I'm giving away 2020 digital copies of the book because I want my memory of 2020 to be that I gifted all of those books and I helped new stylists, existing stylists, struggling stylists, experienced stylists, any level of stylist. You're going to get something from the book, even if it's a marketing idea or something, with brassy hair or a technique. There's a lot of different things in there. It's an easy, quick read. It's 98 pages. It's not a scholarly journal. There's a lot of passion in there and just easy, bite-sized things that if you take them and run with it, can make a big difference in your career. So everybody gets a copy.
Thank you. That is so great. Thank you so much.
On your chat, the link. I don't know if I can do it from my end.
Yeah, Roni has put it up. She's posted on the chat.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that is so awesome. So what inspired you to write the book?
Just the lack of that information, the fact that I had to get on an airplane and fly and accidentally meet that woman. I thought there's a lot of me's out there that are frustrated with not really understanding how color really works and what does this color wheel mean? What does green and purple and blue and all of that have to do with hair color? That was my biggest disconnect. So it was, how can I simplify that and make it more digestible and real life? Like there's, I don't know if you got a chance to read it, but there's a mother-daughter in there. This is my favorite thing other than that chart. It's this mother and daughter have the same exact formula. And you see how different the result is. And that just shows that example of it's not paint. It's not a white piece of paper. It's a combination of things going on. And it gets so easily predictable that it's incredible how easy it really can be. It really is. It's frustrating to me that I can't reach more people sooner in their career.
Okay, so let's use that as a transition point. So here you are, you're at a different point in your career, and you run into yourself, your younger version of yourself at 19. What do you tell your younger version of yourself at 19 in the year 2021, given what we have? What do you tell yourself? What advice do you give the 19-year-old version of yourself in the year 2021?
Honestly, I wouldn't change a single thing, except I would say make exercise part of your life to where it just is what it is. I have yo-yoed up and down with dieting and exercise. I've gotten super skinny and fit and been miserable because all I wanted to do is have, my favorite food. I would always be on a diet and say, I can't wait until I get to my goal weight so that I can do all the things that I didn't do,
Right.
So seeing people that have really taken care of themselves, I think this is such a physical job and I never properly hydrated. I always would forgo my lunch and my own needs to squeeze that other client in. And it wreaks havoc on your metabolism, on the cortisol and the belly fat and all the things that I'm learning in my 50s now. I wish that I knew in my 20s. So it's more on a personal level of, take care of yourself and have a damn boundary once in a while. Stop being a doormat and letting clients guilt you into over serving them. You know, you always have that client that's chronically late or no shows a million times. And I see it all in the forums now. And I'm like, oh no, that doesn't happen anymore. We have contracts and systems for that. So I was never a system person. I always kept everything really loose and fun and personal. And I think you blur the line between friendship and client. And I think that then leads to not charging the proper prices, not having the boundaries. It all kind of comes together. So that's what I would tell her is, you know, you've got this, everything is going to come together, because I always knew it would. I think if you're willing to do the work, you cannot not succeed. You know, the people that are the woe is me whiners and complainers are the ones sitting in the break room on their phone watching TikTok. They're not out trying to learn new things. The education, I mean, my God, what a time to be in the industry. You can be educated anywhere,
Right.
with the palm of your hand on a phone. So that's, God, if I would have started out now, I can't even imagine what I could have accomplished if we had the internet. But and no, I have no regrets. I had an amazing, and no, actually I do have one regret, not putting my own family first. My salon was my first baby. So I gave up a lot of the family time for the business, and I regret that. But
you know what? Your daughter's in the business now. Both of your kids are studying entrepreneurship. You know, they love their mom. You know, it's all good. It's all good.
it all turned out.
Yeah. Elaine, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. This was just a wonderful journey tonight with you. And it surely has been a colorful journey. And thank you so much for donating 2020 copies of your book. We will all be good students and read it and learn from you, just as you had learned from others along the way. And I would encourage all of us to really think about mentoring and how we're making a difference in the lives of others. Clearly, mentors have made a difference in all of our lives and all of our careers. And, we can continue to do the same and keep paying it forward. So
Absolutely.
I wish you and your family a happy new year, and wish everybody on the huddle time tonight a safe, peaceful, and prosperous 2021. On behalf of all of my colleagues at Cosmetologist Chicago and America's Beauty Show, Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us on Huddle Time. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Good night, everyone.
Good night.